It started like any other month. The six of us, me, Ethan, Nate, Trevor, Josh, Brian, and Sam, have been friends since we were kids. We're in our late 30s, early 40s now, but we still make it a point to meet up once a month at my beach house. Nothing fancy, just a two-story place that smells like salt air, with an old surfboard hanging on the living room wall. We used to surf all the time back in college. Now, we mostly sit around, grill steaks, and talk about how fast life is moving. Nate is the neat freak. If a picture frame is even slightly crooked, he'll fix it. Josh is the smartass, always cracking jokes, sometimes taking things a little too far. Trevor's the quiet one. He's an architect, brilliant at what he does, but not the type to open up easily. Brian, ex-military, is built like a brick wall and keeps his emotions locked up just as tight. And Sam? Sam is the guy who always seemed to have it all. He's a successful lawyer, drives a nice car, wears tailored suits even when he doesn't need to. The kind of guy who always lands on his feet. That night, we were doing the usual, drinking, grilling, reminiscing, when Nate pulled out his phone and sighed. Look at this. He held up a picture of his 13-year-old son, Dylan, glaring at the camera. Principal called me today. Dylan's acting out, talking back to teachers, grades are dropping. I don't even recognize him anymore. We all murmured some version of kids go through phases, but Nate looked genuinely torn up about it. Josh, never knowing when to shut up, smirked. Maybe he's not yours, man. Silence. Even Josh winced, like he immediately regretted saying it. Trevor, who had been staring into his beer most of the night, spoke up. Why don't you just get a DNA test? He said it so casually, like he was suggesting we grab another round of drinks. At first, we laughed it off. The idea was ridiculous. But the more we joked about it, the more it started to sound not so crazy. And that's how 6 grown men ended up in a DNA testing clinic the next morning. The receptionist gave us a look like she was so done with people's bullshit. I tried to explain. Yeah, we all need tests. For, peace of mind. She didn't even blink. Just handed us the swabs and told us where to go. To make things even worse, Nate's brother, Logan, showed up with his 2 sons. The kids kept asking, Uncle Ethan, why are we here? Trevor looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. We did the swabs, paid the fee, and agreed to meet at Sam's house the following week for the results. Sam's house was the opposite of my beach place, modern, spotless, and so pristine that it felt like no one actually lived there. We sat around his sleek dining table, beers in hand, trying to pretend we weren't all on edge. Nate went first. His hands were shaking when he tore open the envelope. 99.99%. He let out a long breath and actually laughed. Jesus. I'm grounding that kid for a month for making me worry like this. We all chuckled, the tension breaking. One by one, we checked our results. All as expected. Until Trevor. He didn't say anything. Just stared at the paper in his hands. Trevor. I nudged him. His face was pale. He swallowed hard, then slowly slid the paper across the table. His voice was barely above a whisper. Janie's, not mine. Silence. Josh, for once in his life, didn't have a joke. Trevor kept staring at the numbers like they might change if you just looked at them long enough. 25%. That meant only one thing. Janie wasn't just not his. She was his niece. Which meant her real father had to be someone in his family. And then, hell broke loose. Nate knocked over his beer, the bottle shattering on the hardwood. Brian clenched his jaw, so tight I thought he might break his teeth. Sam rubbed a hand down his face, whispering, fuck. And me? I felt sick. I had my kids' results. I knew they were mine. But watching Trevor unravel, that was something else. Trevor didn't go home that night. He stayed at my beach house, sitting on the deck, staring at the ocean. He barely spoke. Just kept gripping that damn piece of paper like it was the only thing holding him together. At some point, I sat next to him, cracking open another beer. You okay? Stupid question. Trevor let out a breath. I always thought she had my mom's eyes. His voice was hollow. I didn't know what to say. The next morning, Trevor called a private investigator. I'd never seen him move that fast. He didn't tell Janie's mother, Ashley, that he knew. Not yet. A week later, he called us over. He looked like hell, dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, exhaustion written all over his face. He pulled out a folder and tossed it onto the table. Someone new, he said, voice tight. We looked down. Photos. Ashley and Logan. Some from 8 years ago. Some from last month. Josh swore under his breath. Trevor let out a bitter laugh. They were doing this under my nose. In my house. While I was at work, thinking I was providing for my family. He shook his head, looking down at his hands. Someone wanted me to know. Trevor sat in silence, staring at the folder on the table. No one spoke. What the hell could we even say? The proof was right there. Ashley and Logan, sneaking around for years. Some photos were so old that Trevor still had his hair longer, before he cut it short for work. Others were recent. The timestamps weren't just from back then. Some were weeks ago. Josh let out a sharp breath. Jesus, man. Trevor didn't react. His fingers tightened around the edge of the table, his knuckles white. They were in my house, he muttered. Laughing. Drinking wine on my damn patio like they didn't have a care in the world. Sam ran a hand through his hair, his lawyer brain already working. Who sent this? Trevor exhaled sharply. No name. No return address. Just showed up at my office. His voice was rough, like he hadn't slept. Brian frowned. That's weird. Someone wanted you to find out. Someone who knew. Josh leaned in. Could it be Ashley? Maybe she wanted to confess, but didn't have the guts? Trevor scoffed. Ashley? Confess. He let out a bitter laugh. She's been lying to me for 8 years. The only reason she'd ever tell me is if she was about to get caught anyway. Brian nodded. Then whoever sent this wanted you to take action. Trevor's jaw tightened. Oh, I'm taking action. That was when he pulled out another folder. Not photos. Bank statements. We leaned in, scanning the documents. Josh's eyes widened. What the hell is this? Trevor tapped a page with his finger. Loan agreements. Business transactions. Except I never took out these loans. And I sure as hell don't own a consulting firm. I felt a sinking feeling in my gut. Ashley. Trevor nodded. And Logan. She was funneling money to him for years. Fake invoices. Transfers to accounts I didn't even know existed. Josh swore. How much? Trevor's voice was flat. 200 grand. Dead silence. Then Brian let out a low whistle. She stole $200,000 from you? Not just from me. Trevor muttered. From our family. From Janie. From everything I worked my ass off to build. He let out a slow breath, gripping the bridge of his nose. And the best part? Logan's broke. He gambled most of it away. Sam flipped through the papers, shaking his head. She forged your signature on half these documents. This isn't just divorce-level bad. This is felony fraud. Trevor nodded. Yeah, and I'm gonna make sure she pays for it. Josh leaned back, folding his arms. Okay, so what's the plan? Trevor's eyes darkened. First, I get them out of my house. Trevor didn't go home that night. He stayed at my place, barely speaking. Just sitting on the deck, staring at the ocean, his fingers tapping restlessly against the arm of his chair. Around midnight, he finally muttered, I don't even know if she ever loved me. I turned to him. Of course she did, man. At least at some point. Trevor huffed out a laugh, but there was no humor in it. You don't sleep with someone's brother if you love them. He shook his head. And Logan, he was my best man at our wedding. His voice cracked at the last part. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. Just sat there with him, watching the waves crash against the shore. The next day, Trevor made his move. He told Ashley he had a business trip and would be gone all weekend. Of course, she took the bait. That night, Logan showed up at Trevor's house. They must have thought they were so fucking clever. What they didn't know was that Trevor wasn't out of town. And he wasn't alone. We were waiting. Ashley and Logan strolled in, laughing. Then Ashley saw Trevor, standing in the middle of the living room. Her face went white. Logan froze. Trevor held up a hand. Shut the fuck up. Ashley swallowed. I thought you were. Trevor threw the folder at them. Papers scattered across the floor. Explain this, he said, voice deadly calm. Logan glanced down. When he saw the photos, his face twisted into something ugly. Ashley. She didn't even look at them. She just started crying. Trevor, I can explain. He laughed. Actually laughed. Explain? He gestured at the mess of documents between them. What, exactly, do you think you can explain, Ashley? Ashley stepped toward him, voice shaking. I never wanted to hurt you. It just... Trevor held up a finger. Don't say it just happened. Don't you dare. Ashley shut her mouth. Logan finally spoke, his voice quiet. We didn't mean for it to get this far. Trevor's hands clenched into fists. You've been screwing my wife for 8 years, Logan. What was the endgame here? What was the plan? Logan had the nerve to look ashamed. Ashley took a deep breath. Trevor, please think about Janie. Trevor's face hardened. You don't get to use her. Ashley flinched. Trevor stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper. You didn't just cheat. You stole from me. You forged my name on loans. You emptied our accounts. And you thought I'd never find out. Logan tried to move past Brian toward the door, but Brian blocked him. Where do you think you're going? Logan's voice was barely steady. I'm not doing this. Trevor let out a humorless chuckle. Oh, you're doing this. Ashley's tears dried up fast. She turned mean. You can't just throw us out, Trevor. I have rights. Trevor smirked. Not for long. Then he stepped aside, revealing the eviction notice on the counter. Ashley grabbed it, scanning the page. When she saw the date, her mouth dropped open. You already filed this? Trevor crossed his arms. Last week. Ashley lost it. She lunged at Trevor, fists clenched. You son of a bitch. Brian caught her mid-swing. She fought him, screaming, kicking, feral with rage. But Brian didn't let go. Trevor just watched her struggle, his expression blank. I want you out of my house, he said. Now. Ashley stopped fighting. Her shoulders slumped. She turned to Logan, tears in her eyes. What do we do? Logan looked around the room, his gaze settling on the eviction notice. Then he sighed. We leave. Ashley looked betrayed. But she didn't argue. Trevor didn't say another word, just watched as the two of them walked out the door. Josh let out a low whistle. Holy shit, man. Trevor didn't react, just stared at the empty doorway. Then he muttered, this isn't over. Trevor thought kicking them out would bring him peace. It didn't. Ashley and Logan didn't just slink away into the shadows. They fought hard. 2 days after the eviction, Trevor's credit card got declined at a gas station. He checked his bank account. Frozen. Ashley had drained everything. He stormed into Sam's office, tossing his phone on the desk. She took it all. Sam frowned, picking up the phone. You cut her off from the accounts, right? Trevor clenched his jaw. Thought I did. Sam scrolled through the transactions, then exhaled sharply. She's smart. She didn't just pull money out. She reported fraud on the account, which automatically froze everything. Trevor let out a bitter laugh. You're telling me she stole from me, and I'm the one who can't access my money? Josh, who had been sitting in the corner, slammed his beer down. Dude, let's just... He made a vague punching motion. Handle it. Sam shot him a look. You want to go to jail? Josh groaned. Fine. Legal way first. Sam rubbed his temples. I'll get the bank to unfreeze your funds, but it'll take a few days. He scrolled through some files. In the meantime, you still have a bigger problem. Trevor exhaled sharply. Yeah, Logan. Because Logan wasn't just crashing on Ashley's couch. He had moved into Trevor's house. Trevor pulled up to the house that night, gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles ached. The porch light was on, and parked in the driveway, in his spot, Logan's fucking car. Trevor sat there, staring at it, his pulse pounding in his ears. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times, walking up to that door, throwing Logan out with his own hands. But he knew that wouldn't end well. So he took a slow breath, stepped out of the truck, and rang the doorbell. No answer. He knocked, harder this time. Still nothing. Then, finally, footsteps. The door cracked open just an inch, the chain still latched. Ashley's face appeared in the gap. Her eyes flickered with something close to panic. What do you want? She snapped. Trevor's fists clenched at his sides. Get Logan. Now. Ashley huffed out a bitter laugh. Oh, so you think you can just show up and... Trevor slammed his palm against the doorframe. Ashley jumped. I want him out of my house. His voice was dangerously calm. Ashley squared her shoulders, regaining some of her arrogance. Legally, I'm still on the lease. I have every right to be here. Trevor's eyes darkened. Not for long. That got her attention. Ashley's expression flickered, like she was actually scared for the first time. What did you do? Trevor stepped back, pulling a document from his jacket. I'm selling the house. Her face went white. You can't. Trevor smirked. I can. I did. Ashley snatched the paper from his hands, scanning it frantically. You filed this today? Trevor's smile widened. Last week. Ashley's breathing turned shallow. Trevor, you can't just... It's done. He turned to leave. You've got 30 days to get the hell out. Ashley was still shouting as he walked back to his truck. Trevor didn't care. Because this time, he had already won. Trevor thought selling the house would end it. That Ashley and Logan would finally crawl away like the parasites they were. But Ashley wasn't done. Not even close. 3 days after their conversation, Trevor got a call from Janie's school. Mr. Carter? The principal's voice was cautious. Your wife, ex-wife, was here today. Trevor straightened. Why? She tried to take Janie out of class early. Said she had permission, but, well, we checked the custody order. A pause. She doesn't. Trevor's stomach dropped. Where's my daughter now? Still in class, the principal assured him. We didn't release her. But Ashley, she made a scene. We had to call security. Trevor's grip on the phone tightened. What did she say? The principal hesitated. That you were abusive. That Janie was scared of you. Trevor let out a slow breath, trying to keep his voice level. And you believed her? A beat. No. But she's not going to stop, Mr. Carter. I think you should be prepared. Trevor's blood went cold. Ashley was going for custody. We were all at my place that night, Trevor, Josh, Sam, Brian, and me. Trevor sat with his elbows on his knees, head in his hands. She's trying to take her from me. His voice was hoarse. I knew she'd fight for money, but Janie, she doesn't even want her. She just wants to win. Brian exhaled sharply. What's the legal move here? He looked at Sam. Sam rubbed his chin. Ashley's got nothing. She lost primary custody for a reason. But that doesn't mean she can't drag this out. If she plays dirty, it could take months, maybe years, to fully shut her down. Josh scoffed. So what? We just let her pull this shit? Sam looked at Trevor. No. We fight. Trevor was silent for a long time. Then he nodded, jaw tight. Okay. And just like that, war was declared. Ashley hit hard first. She filed for emergency custody, claiming Trevor was unstable and dangerous. Her evidence? A photo of his broken whiskey glass. She had taken it the night he found out the truth, after he threw his drink against the wall. Said it was proof of his violent outbursts. The judge? Didn't buy it. But Ashley didn't stop. She dragged Trevor into court over and over 7 times in 4 months. At one point, she accused him of neglect because Janie got a scraped knee at the park. Another time, she tried to say he was financially unstable since he sold the house, conveniently leaving out the part where she stole $200,000 from him. But every single time, she lost. Trevor never let his guard down, though, because Ashley was desperate. And desperate people do stupid things. He was right. Because then Logan got involved. Trevor was pulling into his driveway one evening when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something told him to pick up. The second he did, a voice, Logan's voice, spoke on the other end. You think you've won, huh? Trevor's entire body went tense. He gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. What do you want? Logan laughed. You really think I'm going to let you take my daughter away from me? Trevor saw red. She's not your daughter, he said, voice cold. She's mine. Logan's voice turned venomous. Not according to biology. Trevor snapped. You were never her father, he growled. You were just some pathetic, low-life piece of shit who couldn't even take care of himself, so you latched onto my life and sucked me dry. Silence. Then, Logan's final threat. You'd better watch your back, Trev. The line went dead. Trevor sat there, breathing hard, heart pounding. Logan had nothing left. No money. No house. No control. But that didn't make him less dangerous. It made him more. Trevor didn't sleep that night. He sat in his dark living room, staring at the phone, replaying Logan's words over and over. You'd better watch your back. It wasn't an empty threat. Logan wasn't smart, but he was spiteful, and that made him unpredictable. By morning, Trevor had made a decision. He wasn't just going to defend himself. He was going to end this. The final custody hearing was in 2 weeks. Trevor spent every single day preparing. Sam worked his legal magic, digging up everything on Ashley and Logan, fake loans, fraudulent accounts, every shady financial move they'd ever made. Brian pulled security footage from Janie's school, proving Ashley had tried to illegally take her. Josh? He did what Josh does best, dug into Logan's past. And what he found? It was bad. Logan had outstanding warrants for unpaid debts. He owed money to some very dangerous people. And those people wanted him to pay up. Trevor smiled for the first time in weeks. The day of the hearing, Trevor walked into the courtroom ready. Ashley was already there, sitting at her lawyer's table, looking polished and put together. Logan sat behind her, arms crossed, smirking like he had already won. Trevor didn't look at them. He walked straight to his seat. Focused. Controlled. And when the judge entered, the fight began. Ashley's lawyer went first, painting her as a devoted mother and Trevor as a cold, distant father who was too obsessed with revenge to focus on Janie's needs. Trevor let them talk. Then it was his turn. Sam stood, calm and confident. Your Honor, he said, stepping forward. Let's talk about who Ashley really is. He He handed the judge a stack of documents. These are loan agreements. Dozens of them. Ashley Carter forged my client's signature and stole over $200,000. The courtroom went silent. Ashley's face paled. Sam continued. She has attempted to illegally remove Janie from school, has defied court orders, and has continuously dragged my client into court with baseless accusations. He paused. But that's not the worst part. He turned, gesturing toward Logan. This is Logan Carter. Logan stiffened. Sam's eyes didn't leave the judge. He is a fraudster, a gambler, and a man with multiple outstanding debts. Sam handed another document to the judge. These are the names of the people Logan owes money to. People with criminal records. And my client does not believe his daughter should be anywhere near him. Ashley whispered something to her lawyer, panic creeping into her expression. Logan? For the first time, he looked nervous. The judge skimmed through the paperwork, then looked directly at Ashley. Ms. Carter, she said, voice stern. Do you have any response to these allegations? Ashley opened her mouth, then closed it. She had nothing. Logan? He was already sinking into his chair. The judge sighed, setting the papers aside. Given the overwhelming evidence, I see no reason to amend the current custody arrangement. Full custody remains with Mr. Carter. Trevor exhaled, relief crashing over him. Ashley's lawyer immediately requested visitation rights. The judge shook her head. Supervised visits only. And given Ms. Carter's history, she will be required to complete a court-mandated parenting course before any visits are approved. Ashley's face collapsed. Then the judge turned to Logan. As for Mr. Carter, Logan sat up straighter. The judge's expression hardened. This court strongly recommends that you remove yourself from this child's life. Permanently. Logan flinched. The judge nodded toward security. You may escort him out. Two officers approached, gesturing for Logan to stand. Are you fucking kidding me? Logan snapped, pushing up from his seat. This is bullshit. The officers flanked him. Sir, let's go. Logan turned, his eyes landing on Trevor. You think you won, huh? He sneered. Trevor tilted his head. Then smirked. Logan lunged. It happened fast. 1 second he was standing, the next he was swinging. Trevor barely moved. The officers caught Logan mid-strike, yanking him back. Get him out, the judge ordered, her voice ice cold. Logan fought, kicking, cursing, but it didn't matter. Because at the end of the day, he was nothing. And Trevor had everything. 2 weeks later, Trevor stood outside the recital hall, nervously shifting from foot to foot. Janie's dance recital was tonight. He almost didn't come. Didn't know if she wanted him there. Then, Trevor. He turned. Janie stood in the doorway, still in her little ballet outfit, staring at him with wide eyes. Trevor swallowed. Hey, kiddo. For a second, she just looked at him. Then as she ran, straight into his arms. You came, she mumbled against his chest. Trevor hugged her tight. I wouldn't miss it for the world. And for the first time in months, he felt whole again. That night, we sat around the fire pit at my beach house, the waves crashing in the distance. Trevor took a slow sip of his beer. Josh nudged him. You okay? Trevor let out a breath, watching the flames. Then he nodded. For the first time in a long time, yeah. Josh grinned. Damn right. And as we sat there, laughing, drinking, just being, I realized something. Trevor wasn't just okay. He was finally free.